Hey everybody, how we doing today? So the patio workshop is pretty much done. So very happy with it, including getting the router out and finishing off this old door here, putting a handle in it. So I'm gonna call this done. But check this out, since we're done with this, bam, we're gonna start on this. I got me a solo ship, or solo skiff, I guess. Bam! So this is our next project here. Very happy, got a good price for it, and even better, it hasn't been all cut up and modified, so I get to do it how I want to. So this is what we're going to be working on. Yeah, real good shape, very happy about the condition of it. You can see that it was probably somebody's garage queen or side of the house queen, because it barely has any marks on it, not versus my stuff. So yeah, it got to live a nice easy life until it got to me. But yeah, we're gonna be doing some modifications to it and getting this guy ready. Okay, so why the solo skiff and what are the plans? Well, the why part came down to kind of twofold. One, a couple of years ago, I was adding to my fleet of 2.5 horsepower Suzuki outboards for my kayak, and one popped up on Facebook Marketplace, so I went and checked it out. It was a dead one, going to rebuild it and so forth. Talked to the guy, got the 2.5, but then he also had a 6 horsepower Suzuki that he was just wanting to get rid of. He was just passing through, picked up a new one, and had those 2 dead ones for a while, and he just wanted to junk them off, so I ended up taking them both. My plan was, hey, why not just see if I could rebuild it, and I'll throw it on my kayak. 2.5 horsepower is good, more horsepower is better. So I spent some time on that 6 horsepower. It had a bent valve, bad head, and because it had been sitting so long, the piston rings had frozen, compressed within the piston, so no compression. So I rebuilt that thing inside out, made a video about it, got it running great, so we're all good there. Then I ran it on my kayak, and then I learned a couple of things. One, as you add more horsepower, race car guys will know this, as you add more horsepower, you develop torque, and with torque, you tend to squat. And that's what would happen with the kayak, just like a car does. With the 2.5 horsepower, I was super balanced. I could propel forward easily. It was light, it was quick, responsive, and when I maxed out the horsepower, it would squat, but it would max out where it wasn't a lot of squat, but it was still going forward, and it would go fast enough, and it was good enough, and I was happy about it because it's balanced, it works. Now with the 6 horsepower, I found is that more horsepower means more torque, which means more squat. So as I had added more horsepower, the back would squat, and then I would go from a kayak that sits on top of the water and is actually aerodynamic to now squatting within the water and not being good hydrodynamically. So that butt would drag. As I turned the throttle, it would sink farther, and then you had the diminishing properties where I had more horsepower, but I wasn't really gaining very much speed, and that was not good. So the net result is I added a lot more hassles, more weight, and not really gaining much. So I just killed that, and it just sat on the stand. But then I knew I didn't want to just leave it there. I wasn't going to sell it because I rebuilt it. I wanted to use it to make sure to see how it works and longevity and stuff. So I figured I would buy something that 6 horsepower would actually fit and be balanced with. And that's where you run into problems. Is the only thing that's available for these smaller 2.5, 5, 6 horsepower motors are little inflatables, basically the boat tenders for those guys that have like a sailboat and they live on the anchor, and they have that little tiny boat that they kind of putter into the dock so they can do shopping or whatever and go back and forth. You got those guys. You have like canoe guys. They build those nice canoes for just canoeing around, but then on the saltwater stuff, they make them like little skiffs. You got those. And then you have like the freshwater aluminum boats, little 10-foot, 12-foot aluminum boat, and you go trolling around freshwater, and that's a thing as well. And that's what those small horsepower motors work good with. But the problem with that is that those also tend to be able to handle more horsepower, usually from the 9.9 horsepower, 15 horsepower, even 20, 25 horsepower. And then I get in that same position. I get one of those, and then I have a 6 horsepower on it, but it can hold a 15 horsepower. So what am I doing? I'm going to go ahead and take that 6 horsepower off, put it in storage, and I'm going to find a 15 horsepower or 20 horsepower or even a 9.9 horsepower, because got to do what it can do. All right, and so that wasn't going to work. So by research, I mean, it really came down to a very narrow perspective that the Solo Skiffs and their little duplicate copies of them are rated for, the older Solar Skiffs are rated at 5 horsepower, the newer ones are 6 horsepower, and that was the max. So that was perfect. They're basically, that motor is built for the Solo Skiffs. So that was the one. And then second is I know Tom Mitzlaff, who's the actual original designer slash owner of Solo Skiff. And we had talked before about getting one, but at the time I really wasn't interested because my kayak is so like perfect for everything that I do around here. And then if I got that Solo Skiff, then I'd have to get a motor and then somewhere to put it and then somewhere to how to get it to the water, and then it was just like, forget that, my kayak is fine. So I never really got into it. But then now that I had that motor, now that I knew that was pretty much one of the few things that it was meant for, I said, all right, let's go do this thing. Well, 2 years later, okay, in the meantime, I've got a ton of stuff going on. All About the Bait's killing me. It takes up all my time, all my money. It's massive financial. I put everything into it. Doing YouTube videos still and just normal life stuff. So I really didn't have much time to put into it, but I kept looking at it and kept it on the side burner. And I got very vested into kind of tracking the pricing. In that couple years, I saw about a dozen Solo Skiffs in the Keys through Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. And they would range from as low, I think the cheapest one I saw sold was either $650 or $750, and then they sell up to a couple thousand just for the Solo Skiff. And then you have combos where you can get the trailer and the motor for low as like $2,500 to $4,000. People would ask for them. So I got to see those. There was that one at $650 or $750. There's a couple at $800. A few more in that $900 to $1,000 range. And then after that, those are the ones that tend to have sold eventually, and they sat around for a while and they finally sold. But then you got that $1,200. It was kind of like they sat there for quite a while. And then you got those people that bought them new and didn't want to dump them off. And the $1,500 to $2,000 range, and they never sold. They'd be on there forever. So I knew kind of the price range I was looking for. I wouldn't want to put a lot of money into it. And then eventually I started knocking off all these projects. You see, like I did the patio workshop was a huge one. The car was a huge one. Getting the warehouse ready, finished, 90% of it done. That was done. Getting some. This house is really old and kind of run down, and it's actually like an old warehouse equivalent. Not a residential warehouse, like an old warehouse is basically what it is. And so I had a lot of stuff to make it livable I've been working on. I got those done. So got a lot of stuff done. The All About the Bait stuff, I've knocked off almost all my A-list priority merchandise, which take a lot of time. They're custom, cost a lot of money, take a lot of time to do. And I finally got I'm down to one last one, and then I'm done with the A ones, and then all the lower B, C, and D's are just more, give me 1,000 of those, give me 1,000 though, here's money, and it's just low-key easy. So I got those out, so now I've got some free time. Happened that a Solo Skiff came up that came up perfect for what I was wanting to pay. The condition of it was good, and it was unmolested, so that it didn't have a bunch of stuff on it that I wouldn't want or I would have done differently. Because I want to make it for fishing the Keys the way I fish, and it just happened to work out perfectly. So it was just like, came up, Said, that's all the bells, everything's lined up, everything else is done, I've got free time, and I went and bought it. And there you go, I got a Solo Skiff. Now, what am I going to do with this Solo Skiff? I have what I think is the ultimate setup for the Florida Keys with my kayak and small outboard motor. I tell people a lot that the Florida Keys is a very technical fishery, and the reason why it's technical is because there are so many target species, hundreds of them, that people spend thousands of dollars to try to catch one of these 100 different fish. And for each one of those hundreds of fish, there's multiple different techniques that are used to catch that fish. And there's multiple different baits that are used to catch that fish. And we have different migration patterns and seasonalities. And then you talk about we're 100 miles out in the middle of the ocean on a bunch of little islands. So our range goes from thousands of feet of water to inches of feet of water on the flats. So we've got flats, we've got channels, we've got patch reefs, we've got the bridges, we've got the reef, we've got the deep water stuff, we've got the Gulf Stream, and we've got it all around here, okay? And a lot of times it takes specialty stuff to do each specialty thing. What I found is I could do all of it with my kayak setup, and it is done very effectively. It's very efficient cost-wise. It's safe, and it suits me in that I like going fishing by myself, because when I go out with other people, I end up doing more teaching and showing and prepping and stuff versus me just going out and getting to fish. So a single person boat, kayak, whatever fits me just fine. So there are still, though, like overall I say my kayak system is number one, but that doesn't mean that it's the best in every category. There's a few things that it is weak in, which this Solo Skiff I think will fill those weak spots. So when I'm wanting to do something that involves those weak spots, I've got this Solo Skiff that I could just shift to. So for example is speed, okay? I'm definitely not a speedster with a 2.5 horsepower outboard on there, okay? So it takes me time to get out there. In general, it doesn't affect me at all because I really don't care about speed, because I learned so much by going slower and finding spots and finding areas to do stuff and seeing fish and seeing bait and seeing stuff on my way to spots where it's worthwhile not to be 400 horsepower just hydroplaning out there as fast as possible. So it might take me a half an hour to get out to the reef, where a full-size boat you can get there in 5 or 10 minutes. But there's really not much of a difference. If it was a matter of, oh, we have a tournament that starts at 8 o'clock, okay, a boat can start off at 7:50 and get there at 8. I would have to leave at 7:30 and get there at 8. And once we're out there, it makes no difference. And I'm actually better off because my kayak is more stealthy than a big boat is, okay? So that's the kind of the trade-offs and stuff. But speed is an issue, especially for me. I don't get to go out till fishing until probably 1 o'clock and in the afternoons. And in the winter, it's particular when it gets dark at 5:30. So I leave here at 1, I go out to whatever spot, drive to a certain spot. It takes me about an hour, unload, so that's an hour and a half. Then I have to go out to wherever I want to go. And a lot of times the winter fisheries that I'm keying in on are sea trout, mackerels, cobia, a little bit of bottom fishing in the backcountry. And you have to go to the outside edge. So it might take me 45 minutes to an hour to get out to those spots. So you're looking at 2.5 hours out of a 4-hour window is just me getting out there. And that doesn't mean taking into account getting back. So if I come back in the dark, I could get 2 hours of good quality fishing time in. If I want to get back before dark, I get maybe an hour's worth of fishing time. And then I end up not going and doing those things, and I just do stuff that are close by during the winter, and it just not as effective. Where I have this Solo Skiff, I get out there in half to a third of the time, and then I'm equal footing with a big boat, and I've got effective amount of fish time. So that's where it'll come in handy. I also see it being good for sight fishing, one of my core ways of fishing. Right now with the kayak, I stand up below the water line. Okay, so my height level is less than my height. Whereas on the Solo Skiff, instantly I'm a foot above where I am in the kayak if I stand on the seat platform. And with that added angle, if you watch my sight fishing, how to sight fish videos, that angle is everything. It allows you to see farther out, it allows you to see clearer, and it's very difficult sight fishing. I have good eyes, I have that really good ability to do that, but it only gets better as I get higher. I mean, you put me on a flats boat with a poling platform, oh, fish don't have a chance. It's really not it's way too easy. So I don't mind going on my kayak, but yeah, getting me a foot above the water on that Solo Skiff, yeah, it's going to be a huge difference there. Now the trade-off is that mobility-wise, my kayak is hands over fist. I can tell it's going to be easier than the Solo Skiff because it's a lot lighter and it has a rudder that I can control with my feet. So I can hands-free go a bunch of different areas with being able to adjust directions, where that Solo Skiff is going to be a lot of poling, paddling with my hands, not holding the fishing rod and having to put down stuff. So the areas where I'll use that will be, like if you watch my last bonefish videos, is finding spots, anchoring up, getting high in that platform, and spotting those fish coming to me. Where my kayak is more effective stalking, but still pretty good at anchoring up and doing that. So it's just going to increase that a little bit better. So those are the kind of the couple of things. Then the third aspect is going to be the challenging point, and that's going to be convenience. Right now, I car top my kayak and the outrigger, and then everything else fits in the back, no problem. But it's a couple of pieces. It only takes me a couple of minutes. It's just as fast as unloading a boat is me unloading my kayak and putting the 3 pieces onto it and then the stuff into it. And it's really not that big of a deal. People always watch me do it and they're like, holy crap, it all fits and it's just on there just like that. And yeah, because I have experience of doing it so much, I make it very efficient. But my initial part of that Solo Skiff is I was going to say, I picked it up and it's 150 pounds. My kayak is 80 pounds. I lift my kayak with one hand. That thing I lifted up and it happened to have a few gallons of water in it. I was like, holy crap, I am never going to use this thing. Okay, and I'll be doing another pros and cons video later, but my initial, when I picked this thing up, I was like, I am never going to use this thing. It's too heavy, it's bulky, it's hard to carry, move around. I'm just never going to use it. I might as well just cancel this sale and just say, well, I tried. But I said, no, be patient, work your way through it. But I'm actually going to focus a lot, and one of the videos coming up will be specifically about this, is to make it more efficient to use that Solo Skiff than it is to use my kayak. Okay, if I can get to that point, then it will be worthwhile. But it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort, and some money. But to make that Solo Skiff easier to get from home to the water, not even talking about fishing on it, but just getting it from my house to the water, and from the water getting it home, I have to make it easier than loading my 80-pound kayak that I could do with one hand and not even bend over onto my rooftop of my car. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working on a lot, and that'll be like the third factor. If I can make it more convenient, then it will be worthwhile and I'll go from there. So those are basically it. And those, oh, I guess the fourth one is YouTube videos. Okay, some stuff about the build process, my thought process of a new vessel, and how I get it set up for fishing in the Florida Keys, and the reasons why I do things certain ways. Okay, and then after that would be just rotating it into my general fishing in the Florida Keys. How I bridge fish, flats fish, reef fish, maybe do some blue water stuff, do some trolling, how I do that solo skiff versus my kayak. My kayak, I have it dialed in, but I've been working on that thing for 10 years now to get it so refined, every little aspect of it. So it's a little different, but I need to get that solo skiff close to that efficiency in order for me to keep it. Otherwise I'll just get rid of it. So we'll go from there, but more YouTube videos to go in the process, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I'm going to wrap this video up. Basically, the good thing is that I've been working on the solo skiff this whole time frame. I had some other projects I'm finishing up, but I've got a lot of video stuff already shot and a lot of progress already made. So the stuff for the setting this solo skiff up and getting it ready and getting it to the point where it's ready to go on the water is almost done. So I'm going to push those videos out really quickly, get those over with so we can get to the on the water stuff. So that's a good part. So there we go. I got a solo skiff, so see what I do with it. Oh, and I did want to say a big shout out to my Patreon supporters. They're the one that paid for the solo skiff and all the stuff I'm doing with it. That's kind of really what that money I want it for. I've gotten to the point where I'm very efficient, and I have my own tackle company, so I don't spend money on tackle, and the Esky rods gives me the rods, and so I really don't spend very much for fishing in the Keys because I've got it nailed down to what I need. But that Patreon money allows me to do this kind of stuff. Normally, would I put my money towards adding something else that I really don't need? Probably not. But since I've got it, I'm going to use it for what people are giving me for, and that's what this solo skiff is about. Otherwise, I would just invest it in the All About the Bait store, but that's not so interesting. So I'm going to pump it into the Key West kayak fishing stuff. So there you go. Thank you, Patreon. And yeah. So check out the rest of the videos.